Hi, my name is Aaron Chavera, and today I'm going to be discussing Chapter 9, which is the fundamentals of a message. This chapter to me is really important because as communication majors, which I'm assuming most of us are, it's all about the message. Whether it's creating one, sending one, or fixing a message, it has to do with the message. There was a lot of key concepts in this chapter that really made sense to me, and it's kind of cool because they all end up working towards the same result, whether it's in regular conversation, actual speeches, or persuasion. There's a lot of kind of key things to know about messages. For this presentation specifically, I'm going to be focusing more on powerless speech versus powerful speech. So a little definition about these is going to be that powerless speech focuses more on like tags and filler words that I have myself a big problem with using a lot, such as like, kind of, a lot of like words like that. And then powerful speech is quite opposite, which is focusing on the confidence in your speech and avoiding to use any sort of filler words and making your audience think or know that you know what you're talking about. So a little example that I had been in was about a year ago, like a good year and a half ago. I actually got offered a position for a high position at my work, and they said I had to interview for it. But for that interview, I had to create a pitch or a speech to why I think that I could be perfect for that job and why I wanted that job. It was between me and somebody else, so I was obviously a little nervous about that, but I did create it. I went into that thinking that I had to use or avoid the filler words because I wanted them to know that I was serious about this job and confident in what I was doing and knew what I was talking about. So I went home and practiced a speech. I had 2 days to prepare. I went home and did a whole presentation, or not a presentation, but I developed a speech and I rehearsed it. And then at the time I didn't know about powerless versus powerful, so I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So I went in there using powerful speech. I might have used a little bit of filler words. I think that was mostly because of nerves, but for the most part I think it went really smoothly. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, I did get the job, so I think that the powerful speech did come in handy. If I had used powerless speech using a lot of filler words, I think that would have created uncertainty, because that's what powerless is creating uncertainty, making your audience think, or your audience is developing like these results in their head that you don't know what you're talking about. So that's kind of where that comes from. So now that I've talked about my experience, let's talk about some inferences. So I believe that everyone can develop or has these two ways of speeches. Like I said, this can be in regular like actual speeches or like regular conversations. I do believe that there's a time and a place to use both of these. But the powerful speech does make you seem more confident, especially when you're trying to sell an idea, a pitch, or whatever it may be. The book kind of focuses on that, how powerless doesn't really result in anything, or you shouldn't use powerless speech because of the filler words. But me personally, I do think that you can use powerless speech when it comes to an intimate kind of setting. It makes you seem more personable instead of just very overly confident. You can still be confident and still be personable, and if you're nervous, it's still fine, I believe. So there is a time and a place to use either one of them. Now that I've talked about these inferences, I want to talk about how these inferences can be generalized into parts of life. In our careers in public relations, or at least in my career for public relations, which I'm assuming a lot of us are going to be going for that as well, you have to use powerful speech for the majority of the part. We're going to be creating PR plans for businesses, and a lot of this has to be really confident, especially if you're a freelancer or whatever that may be, or whatever you're doing. You have to kind of create a pitch or a speech to these people, and these people don't want to hear a lot of filler words or kind of uncertainty or questioning. They want to hear the confidence in there that you do know what you're doing, so that they can hire you and they do trust you. I do think that powerful speech is a necessity in our careers, especially as communication majors. Like I said, there is a time and place for the powerless speech, but I think for the most part we're going to be using powerful speech. In conclusion, the text lets us see that not only how speech and language can kind of lay out the communication messages, but how we use them. So what? I believe that in our education right now and how we're getting ready for our careers, this is really critical to us because we're going to be using powerful and powerless speech for probably the rest of our lives, like I said. And I think that creating a message and dispersing a message to whatever person you may be working for, if someone's working for you, you want them to be confident and know what they're talking about. So powerful speech is always going to be a necessity. So a few words to leave off is speak confident and believe what you're saying.